October 1944, Camp Concordia, Kansas. Wind rattled the tin roof of the mess hall as Oberleutnant Friedrich Weber sat in silence. Before him, a plate of steak, glistening with butter, mashed potatoes, a slice of white bread, apple pie cooling beside it. Across the table, an American guard grinned. "Not bad for prison food, huh?" Friedrich lifted his fork. The meat was tender, perfectly cooked. He chewed once, twice, and stopped. Back home, his mother's last letter spoke of hunger, of boiling weeds for soup, of neighbors trading shoes for bread. He looked at the steak again, its scent filling the air. And in that moment, he felt something twist inside him, deeper than defeat. Friedrich Weber was 33 years old when the Reich collapsed around him. An officer in the 3rd Panzergrenadier Division, he'd fought through North Africa, Sicily, Anzio. He'd survived air raids, ambushes, and 3 years of losing ground. But nothing humbled him more than the quiet whistle of a train rolling into Kansas. They had warned him, on the ship across the Atlantic, in the holding camps, that American treatment would be strategic. "Do not trust their kindness," a colonel said. "They wish to confuse you, break your will through softness." Friedrich believed it. He had grown up under Ordnung, structure. His father was a schoolteacher, his grandfather a Prussian artilleryman. He was raised on potatoes, hymns, and the weight of legacy. When Hitler came, he didn't cheer, but he followed. Not out of hate, but out of calculation. Germany needed order. It needed discipline. It needed men who understood how to obey. In Normandy, he'd commanded a battery of self-propelled guns. The last time he fired one was July 1944, when the sky turned to ash and the air reeked of burning fuel. Days later, his unit was encircled. He surrendered without drama, not from cowardice, but math. They were outgunned, outmaneuvered, out of fuel. As he boarded the truck under American rifles, he told himself, "You will not beg. You will not cry. You will wait." He expected interrogation, hard labor, malnutrition. Instead, they gave him a blanket and coffee. He drank it cold, unsure if it was a trick. Camp Concordia stood like something from a painting. Red brick buildings, barbed wire fences barely taller than a man. Barracks lined with clean bunks, wash basins, a reading room, even a chapel. When Friedrich stepped through the gate, a young sergeant handed him a paper. "Welcome to Kansas," it said. Below that, "POWs will be treated according to the Geneva Convention. Food will be provided. Work is optional." Optional? He laughed under his breath, but not out of humor, more like disbelief. A corporal beside him whispered, "They want us fat, so they can parade us in front of the cameras." Friedrich nodded, but in his chest, something didn't sit right. The first week, meals came like clockwork. Eggs, sausages, white bread, coffee, even fruit. They ate at wooden tables, under electric lights, while outside the guards joked with each other about baseball. It wasn't comfort, it was confusion. On day 6, a chaplain visited the camp and offered service. Some prisoners scoffed. Christianity from the enemy? But Friedrich attended, not out of faith, but out of observation. He wanted to see if they lied at the pulpit the way Goebbels lied on the radio. Instead, the pastor preached about forgiveness, mercy, justice, without vengeance. Afterward, he shook Friedrich's hand and said, "You're safe now. No one will hurt you here." It was the first handshake Friedrich had received in 2 months. Mail arrived on Fridays. His first letter from home was dated August. His mother's handwriting had changed. thinner, shakier. Friedrich, I pray you are alive. There is little meat left. The queue for potatoes stretches 6 blocks. Frau Engelhardt's child died last week. Malnutrition. You remember her? The one with the ginger cat? He read it 3 times, then looked down at his plate. Roast pork, cabbage, rye bread. He pushed it away. 2 days later, he asked the guard if there was a mistake. If our country is starving, he said, why are we being fed like guests? The guard blinked. Because you're not animals, he said. You're prisoners. We're Americans. Friedrich didn't reply, but for the first time, he wondered if everything he had believed about enemies, about war, about power, was crumbling. That night in his journal, he wrote, I expected brutality. I found meat. The war has not ended. It has only changed shape. It was a Sunday when the stew changed everything. The bell rang at noon, not harsh, not military. Just a simple clang that echoed through the Kansas air like church bells. The mess hall smelled of rosemary and beef. Friedrich lined up like always, tin tray in hand, head high, face unreadable. But this time, it wasn't a soldier behind the ladle. It was a woman. Older, with flour still dusting her apron and silver hair pinned tight. She smiled, not out of politeness, but something warmer, familiar even. Afternoon, boys, she said. We made it hearty today. She scooped a steaming portion of beef stew onto his tray. Friedrich stared at it. Rich, red, chunks of meat he hadn't seen in Germany since 1941. He looked up. Why feed the enemy so well? The woman paused, then said, Because you're still human, son. She moved down the line, as if that answer needed no further defense. He ate slowly that day, each bite tender, soaked in gravy, laced with herbs he couldn't name. For a moment, he wasn't a prisoner. He was a guest, a man, a mouthful of memory. But halfway through the meal, he stopped. The flavor turned bitter in his mouth, not because of the food, but the thought that rose with it. What did my mother eat today? That night, the stars over Concordia were unusually clear. He sat outside the barracks, writing under a low bulb, surrounded by the murmurs of card games and radio static. In his journal, he scribbled, I am not beaten by fists. I am disarmed by beef stew. They smile, they serve, they feed. What strategy is this? He closed the book, looked at his hands, clean now, fed, untouched by violence, and he began to worry, not for his life, but for his certainty. 3 weeks into captivity, Friedrich was selected for outside labor. He expected trenches, fences, men with rifles barking orders. Instead, he found a hayfield, golden, endless, and a farmer in denim overalls handing him gloves. You ever toss bales? The man asked. Friedrich shook his head. The farmer shrugged. You'll learn. No insults, no suspicion, just sweat, rope, and work. By noon, the sun hung high and cruel. Shirts were soaked, palms burned raw. The hay itched through the fabric, but the rhythm was honest. Stack, lift, toss, repeat. When the final load was tied down, the farmer pointed to a patch of shade beneath a tree. Break time. They sat in silence, 4 German POWs and 2 American boys, all chewing on blades of grass, staring at the clouds like they weren't at war. Then the farmer returned, holding a platter, steaks, grilled, still hot, charred at the edges. He set down cold beer, pickles, and bread. Friedrich blinked. The man just said, You earned it. For a moment, no one moved. Then someone, the youngest of them, reached out and grabbed a plate. The others followed, quiet, eyes lowered. Friedrich hesitated. His hands hovered over the food. Back home, his mother rationed potatoes into thin soups. In Dresden, meat had become myth. And here, in Kansas, his enemy fed him like a neighbor. He took one bite. Juice ran down his chin. The smoke, the salt, the grain of the meat. It all hit at once. He chewed slowly, silently, and hated how good it tasted. That night, under the barrack lights, another prisoner approached him. Unteroffizier Karl Engel. He held a letter, hand trembling. "My wife writes," he said, voice thin. "Our daughter eats boiled turnips, nothing more." Friedrich read the lines, carefully written, spotted with ink and tears. Engel stared at the floor. "I cannot tell her what I ate today." Friedrich nodded. He understood. He, too, had eaten the steak, and he, too, could not explain why. Later, lying on his cot, he whispered into the dark, "If the enemy feeds me like this, what does that make me?" No one answered, but the silence felt heavier than chains. Mail came again on Friday. The guard handed out envelopes with a quick nod, a half smile. "Some heavy ones this time," he said. Friedrich took his familiar script, his mother's hand. He sat under the sycamore tree beside the chapel and unfolded the paper slowly. "My dear Friedrich," it began, "your father is gone. He passed quietly. The doctor said malnutrition, but I believe it was worry. The ration line now stretches from the bakery to the schoolyard. The old fight to stay upright. Children collapse from hunger in church. I sold your father's medals for flour. I write this by candlelight. The gas was cut last week. I pray you are warm." Friedrich read the letter 3 times. The words blurred, smeared by something hot in his throat. He looked up. The guard who'd handed him the envelope now leaned against a post, sipping lemonade. Nearby, the mess hall doors swung open. Lunch hour. He didn't move. He could already smell it. Beef again. Baked bread. Cooked carrots. The kind of meal that filled silence with shame. Inside, the other prisoners gathered at the tables. They laughed quietly. Cards shuffled in the corner. Engel passed by with a tray. "Stew today," he said, his voice flat. Friedrich stared at the ground. "I can't." Engel nodded. "Neither can I." That night, the wind carried the scent of food across the barracks. Friedrich lay on his cot, hands over his chest, the letter folded under his pillow. "They feed me steak," he thought, "while my mother boils bark." No one spoke. The quiet was deeper than grief. It was guilt. The next morning, Friedrich sat in the reading room, a converted chapel where Red Cross newspapers, American magazines, and German novels lined simple wooden shelves. He picked up a copy of Stars and Stripes, expecting propaganda. Instead, he found numbers. U.S. Army ships 20 million tons of supplies to Europe. New supply corridor cuts delivery time by half. Meat ration for POWs matches Army standard, 3,200 calories per day. He read each line slowly, deliberately. A photograph showed dock workers unloading crates marked Chicago, beef, refrigerated onto Allied trucks in Normandy. The caption read, "From Midwest to front line, 36 hours." Friedrich folded the paper, closed his eyes. Back home, meat traveled on foot. Or not at all. Later, at the work site, an American sergeant described the system with pride. "We can get a steak from Nebraska to Belgium in 2 days," he said. "Temperature controlled, vacuum sealed, rail to ship to truck." One German laughed bitterly. "In Leipzig, we eat horse meat when the trains aren't bombed." The sergeant shrugged. "That's the difference. You fight with spirit. We fight with systems." He lit a cigarette, and added, "Guess which one lasts longer." That evening, Friedrich sat with Engel under the water tower, their feet dangling from the catwalk. "I used to think they won because they had more," Engel said. Friedrich shook his head. "They didn't just have more. They knew how to move it, how to keep it cold, how to deliver it to strangers." He paused. "They feed the world like we feed soldiers, without hate, without effort, as if it's normal." Engel whispered, "What kind of country does that?" Friedrich didn't answer, but deep down he knew, a country built for people, not pride. That night he wrote in his journal, "We believed America was indulgent, soft, addicted to comfort. But I was wrong. Their strength is not excess, it's precision, and mercy at scale." Dinner came early on Tuesdays. By 5 o'clock the mess hall glowed with warm lamps and the sound of cutlery. That evening it was pork chops, thick, peppered, grilled until the fat crisped around the edge. Friedrich stared at the plate for a long time. He didn't touch it. At the table beside him, a man broke. It was Oberfeldwebel Günther Stahl, broad-shouldered, thick-bearded, always laughing. He'd once survived a direct artillery hit by diving into a trench and dragging 3 men out with him. Now he sat slumped forward, hands limp at his side, his food untouched. Tears fell silently down his cheeks. Everyone noticed. No one spoke. After a minute, Günther choked the words out. "My children are freezing," he said, "and I am full." The words settled like smoke. Someone whispered a prayer. Someone else folded their hands and stared at the floor. Friedrich stood up, walked outside, and leaned against the wall until the wind dried his eyes. He found Sergeant Collier near the gate, a stocky Kansas farm boy turned camp guard, always with a half smile and a sharp jaw. "Something on your mind, Lieutenant?" Collier asked. Friedrich hesitated. "How do you justify this?" he said, motioning toward the mess hall. "Steak, pie, meat every day. For us." Collier scratched his chin. "You're people, aren't you? We were soldiers. So were we. Doesn't mean you starve." Friedrich clenched his jaw. "My country is burning. My family writes of hunger. My city is gone. And here?" He stopped. The sentence hung unfinished. Collier nodded, slow. "Yeah, I reckon it messes with your head." He looked out across the wire. The prairie ran flat and golden to the edge of memory. "We don't feed you because you earned it. We feed you because we believe people don't stop being people just because of war." He tossed a match, lighting a cigarette. "My brother died in Belgium. I still think you deserve dinner." Friedrich turned away, eyes stinging. That night he wrote one sentence in his journal. "They fight with factories, but they win with dignity." A week later, during chapel, the American chaplain read from the Gospel of Luke, "If thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink." Friedrich stared at the floorboards. He wasn't sure if it was the verse, or the memory of steak, or the sound of Günther Stahl crying. But something gave way inside him, not with pain, but with surrender, not of honor, but of illusion. After lights out, he whispered to the ceiling, "We believed victory was steel and sacrifice, but they conquered with kindness." No one replied, but for once sleep came easy. Friedrich was reassigned to rail work that month, unloading boxcars arriving from the east. Each train groaned under the weight of supplies. Crates marked ordnance, barrels stamped U.S. Army, meat frozen, sacks of flour, oats, sugar. The inventory logs came with them, Typed, neat, methodical. Item 403B, beef brisket, 3,200 lbs. Destination, Camp Concordia Mess Hall. Item 211D, salt, 800 lbs, for Kansas Sector Field Units. Friedrich held one of the manifests, reading each line like scripture. Every item had a code, a route, a time of arrival, nothing improvised, nothing late. It was industrial mercy, not accidental generosity. A civilian quartermaster walked the line with a clipboard. Friedrich approached him cautiously. "Sir, how do you move so much food, so far, without delay?" The man looked up, squinted. "We don't wait for someone to ask. We build the path first." He pointed to the horizon. "See that switch station? It reroutes trains if the main line's blocked. Pre-planned redundancies." Friedrich blinked. "Redundancies?" "Yeah, extras, multiples, backups for backups. That's how we sleep at night." That evening, Friedrich sat with Karl Engel by the fence. Engel lit a cigarette with trembling fingers. "I used to laugh at their consumerism," he said. "Fridges, automobiles, choices." Friedrich looked down. "I used to call them spoiled." He glanced at the mess hall. Smoke rising from the chimney. Smelled like garlic and fat. "They weren't spoiled," he said quietly. "They were prepared." Later he saw a pamphlet in the reading room. War Food Administration, ensuring morale through nutrition. Inside, charts, graphs, calorie breakdowns. The U.S. had built an agency just to feed soldiers. Not with scraps, with science. That night, Friedrich wrote, "The Third Reich built myth. America built delivery routes. They win not because they overpower, but because they outplan, outproduce, and outfeed. Even their kindness runs on rails." The following week, the camp hosted a tour. American officers visiting from Fort Riley, inspecting the logistics behind POW labor and food distribution. Friedrich and a few other German NCOs were invited to observe the presentation. They entered a warehouse where rows of charts and boards lined the walls. On one board, a map of the Midwest with red pins marking farms, blue pins for rail depots, green for supply hubs. Each pin was connected with string, a web of movement. A captain pointed with a wooden stick. "This line brings surplus cattle from Amarillo to Wichita, slaughtered within 12 hours, packed, chilled, sent here." He tapped another line. "Cold storage runs on standard generators. Backup units in every facility. Even if one fails, meat doesn't spoil. No excuses." Friedrich asked, "What if the trains are delayed?" The captain smiled. "They're not." Outside, in the sunlight, the group passed a refrigerated truck being loaded. Engel turned to Friedrich. "Back home, if the bakery shuts down. Children don't eat." Friedrich nodded. "Here, they feed prisoners with engineering." A young sergeant overheard and chimed in. "That's the point, gents. We don't fight just with bullets. We fight with flowcharts." He winked. "That's how you win without killing everybody." Back in the barracks, Friedrich stared at his bunk, his pillow, the blanket, the folded uniform. Everything had a place. Everything arrived on time, even dignity. He remembered the slogan from a poster near the kitchen. "Every plate builds morale." He whispered the words, as if testing them. Then he added, under his breath, "Even the enemy's morale." That night he wrote, "The Reich taught us to die well. America teaches its people to live efficiently. And even in war, they do not ration humanity." In February 1945, an American guard passed Friedrich a folded bulletin, an official supply report printed by the U.S. Army Quartermaster Corps. He unfolded it slowly, still expecting propaganda. Instead, he found numbers. Over 18 million tons of supplies shipped to Europe since D-Day. Per soldier, daily rations include 1.5 pounds of meat, 12 ounces of bread, 8 ounces of vegetables. Estimated food delivery capacity, 4,000 tons per day via Red Ball Express. Friedrich ran his fingers over the page. The ink was dry. The facts were not. That afternoon, in the reading room, he found a reference binder. Quartermaster Service Handbook, Volume 2. He read in silence. The U.S. military employed over 150,000 cooks. Refrigeration units spanned 3 continents. New techniques allowed for flash-frozen beef to be shipped across the Atlantic and arrive within 36 hours, still safe to eat. The German Sixth Army froze to death in Stalingrad, he whispered. Meanwhile, the Americans were serving eggs in Belgium. He found Engel later, near the chapel steps, polishing his boots. Friedrich sat beside him. "Do you know how much meat they served last month? Just in this camp?" Engel shook his head. 36 tons. For prisoners. Engel didn't reply, but his hand stopped moving. Later that evening, the men gathered for dinner. It was steak night again. Friedrich stared at the plate. Charbroiled, hot, resting beside mashed potatoes and buttered carrots. He looked around. Dozens of German soldiers, once fierce, now quiet, tired, fed. At the next table, a man from Dresden mumbled, "My family queues for dry bread. I get seconds on beef." No one laughed. A few minutes later, Gunter Stahl, the man who once cried over pork chops, stood and raised his glass. "To the enemy," he said softly, "who feeds us while our country forgets us." No toasts followed, no songs, but no one stopped him. That night, Friedrich wrote his final journal entry. "We believed we had honor, that the Reich made us men. But I sit here, warm, full, and alive, because the enemy fed me. Their bullet did not find me. Their kindness did. We starved our prisoners. They served theirs pie." He paused, then underlined one sentence. "We thought we were the master race, but we couldn't even master delivery." In the morning, the guards passed out packages. Each man received a Red Cross box, soap, canned meat, chocolate, socks. Friedrich held the chocolate in his hands like something sacred. He hadn't tasted it since 1942. He didn't smile. He just whispered, "They didn't win because they fought harder. They won because they fed better." 25 years later, Friedrich Weber returned to Kansas. His hair was silver now, his back stiff, but his hands, still precise, held a folded brochure that read, "Camp Concordia, Historical Site and Museum." The guardhouse was gone, so were the fences, but the mess hall remained, rebuilt, restored, quiet. Inside, volunteers in aprons served steak dinners to visitors. Tourists snapped photos. Children laughed. Friedrich stood at the back, watching it all. A young woman approached with a tray. "Sir, would you like a plate?" He paused, then nodded. The steak was hot, seasoned, familiar. He sat at a wooden bench, alone, and took the first bite. And for a moment, it was 1944 again. The same meat, the same silence. But now he understood. He looked across the hall at a display case. Faded Red Cross parcels, an old POW uniform, a copy of Stars and Stripes. And in the center, a single typed page from a U.S. logistics report. He stood slowly, walked toward it. The text read, "No enemy prisoner under American custody shall go unfed. Supply priority equal to Allied soldiers." He stared at it for a long time, then whispered, "Even our own government never promised us that." That night, he sat under a Kansas sky, the same horizon, the same wind, and wrote in a new journal. They fed me steak, while my homeland offered pride. And in the end, only one of those things kept me alive. Final line. We called them the enemy, but they fed us like brothers.